Hey, good afternoon. Hey, it's good to see you here. Thank you for being here. Say, I'm Pastor Tom Herzog. I'm from over in Broadus, and I was given the opportunity to come over here and do our invocation for tonight's event. And so I'm going to ask you if you would please stand first. And gentlemen, let's remove our headgear. Let's take this opportunity to go to our Lord. Would you please join me in prayer? Our gracious God, we are a blessed people. And we live in a blessed land. And we give thanks to you for those blessings and the myriad of other blessings all around us. We thank you for the rain you've sent this spring and that which is still yet to come. We thank you for the freedom to gather, to share with one another, and to have fellowship. And Father, today as a blessed people, we ask your blessing to continue upon us. We pray for your blessing on the words of Mr. Chang. We pray for your blessing on our minds to be open to the things that you have for us. For Lord, you are the blesser. And so we praise you, we give you the glory, and we ask that you be with us in this time this evening. And we pray in the beloved name of our Savior, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
We're going to have you keep standing, and I'm going to invite you to turn your attention to the flag, and we're going to have both the Pledge of Allegiance and also the national anthem. I believe Rowan's first with the Pledge of Allegiance. Will lead us in that, and then Amanda will lead us with the national anthem.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous flood o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave. Woo!
All right, we are so excited to have all you guys here tonight to listen to this information. But I'm going to introduce to you our Master of Ceremonies. We're excited to have Mike Holland back as our MC tonight, and he is the image of Eastern Montana. A hardworking, conservative cowboy rancher that gets things done and then just carries on. As one of his articles stated, ranching isn't just a business, it's a lifestyle and a legacy. You will soon find out that every one of you have an opinion of some sort, and most likely you're going to hear it at any point in the conversation. And we appreciate that. Mike came to the Molt area in 1988 with his wife Eva and sons Mark, Henry, and Charlie. They now have 3 daughters-in-law and 6 grandkids to add to the bunch. Mike has been a buyer for over 30 years and runs a very diversified livestock operation that includes cattle, and he's one of the largest land sheep producers in the state. He and his son Charlie own and operate Cowboy Meats in Forsyth, and he donated some of our meat trays out there tonight. He is a South Dakota native, but moved around many times before he settled in Molt. He's been a conservative-minded Christian man all his life, and proud of it. When he introduced himself to us a while back, he said, "I've always had enough money for a haircut, but not enough for a tattoo." I think I like this guy. Help me welcome Mike Hollenbeck.
That was quite an introduction. I hope I can meet up to what some of you may be expecting, but you might be disappointed here before too long. But anyway, I relish the thought of emceeing this event tonight and kind of explaining the mission and where the Patriot Roundtable's been here in Miles City and some of the quests they've got in front of them. But the Patriot Roundtable started in 2022 here in Miles City, and their mission is to educate and inform people on issues that maybe the press doesn't do the best job of covering, or the press doesn't have the facts to cover the issue properly. And there's a difference there, because I think that regardless what side you are of an issue, you can certainly tell when the press gets a hold of an issue, whether they're for you or against you, whether you're right or wrong, or whether they're right or wrong. But it definitely makes a difference, and the Patriot Roundtable is a group of people that wants to be grounded in the way they present these facts so that you can decide what side of an issue you want to be on. They fully understand that for every action, for every policy, for every piece of legislation, for every action, there's a reaction. Well, then sometimes the reaction becomes the action. For instance, a piece of legislation goes through. Next thing you know, we've got demonstrators out on the Capitol steps. Well, now we've got a new form of action. We've got to have another reaction to that action. And they try to get to the bottom of these issues and provide you folks with your sponsored dollars from this fundraiser tonight and with your common sense approach to these problems, a grounded opinion that has some facts behind it, and they're nonpartisan. Everybody in the organization is affiliated with the party, but the group as a whole and in their mission is nonpartisan. So I think that gives them it gives them a good standing with all of us. They meet the first Sunday of every month at the VFW. They have a program every month, and these programs started out to be a few people showing up. Well, now the programs are being viewed by up to 10,000 people on the web. This program that's presented the first Sunday of every month is being viewed by up to 10,000 people, and they've had Attorney General Austin Knudsen. They've had the Patrick O'Brien, who was a J6 prisoner. I'm going to refer to him as the Back to Blue with Attorney General Knudsen as a reference. Candidate forms, ballot initiative, educational process for the candidates and the ballot issues. And they've had the Public Service Commissioner Randy Benaki and the Northern Plains Resource Council has been in there on the rate hike issues we're dealing with in Montana. So they've been on both sides of the political spectrum and also simply in quest of the facts. And we just want everybody here tonight to have some fun, to have some camaraderie with your neighbors. Understand that we are here to raise a few funds so that we can keep these programs going. This is a fundraiser forum, so we're gonna have a couple of auction items here. We've got some raffle items here. We're gonna play some heads and tails here before long. But if and do we have some ring salesmen in the crowd? Is that, oh yeah, we've got, if you would please, if you would go through the crowd, and we need $20 bills to come out of your money clip to buy a Chinese ring. And if you buy this high-dollar Chinese ring, then you have a chance at a $600 piece of American jewelry. So you're trading in a $20 Chinese ring for a $600 piece of jewelry. If you people would please support the gals on this quest for this pin, is it?
Pendant with the Navajo bead.
Pendant with a Navajo beaded necklace, and a very, very nice piece of art there. And and I guess I'm going to take a minute to go through a list of people that have supported tonight, and we certainly this event couldn't have been pulled off without them. And that's the Breakforth Bible Church, and Leland Moan, the Miles City Livestock Commission, Bart and Misty Midget have furnished this facility. And correct me if I am wrong, huh? It was on, okay, we're just a week away from the anniversary, the 10-year anniversary of when this place burned to the ground. It was on the 13th of June, 10 years ago, and they built this fine facility back. And so that was very, very big to southeast Montana, very big to eastern Montana, and Miles City especially, to have this thing going the way it's going. Huge business. And it was 10 years ago this week, she was a pile of ash. And so that's quite a quest that the Midgets took under. The Miles City Inn and Suites, Lisa Bennett with Liberty Bell. I know Lisa Bennett with Liberty Bell down. She'll have her paper down in the lobby. The Brooks Three Boys, Beth Kane, the 5S, Falstaff, Curtis Solberg for the work he did on this flag here. Debbie Wire, Nathan Ashers, Christmas Kitchen, Krista Madsen, and the 600 Cafe, Unique Creations, several donors that have helped this, and if I missed you, I'll be going to another card of donors here in a minute. And
Linda Wolf donated the rifle.
And Linda Wolf donated the rifle in memory of Harvey. So we've got some very, very nice items for you to go after here. And Extreme Ice has been a big part of this. Deb Moore, Jim Whitney, the Cat's Claws, several of Brian Lair donated AB Glass. And we're going to have a fundraiser with the rifle and the jewelry, and then when Gordon's done speaking, we're going to auction off those 2 American flags here in a little bit. And so that's kind of, we're getting going with that. But are we getting some rings sold up there? All right, the Chinese rings are selling good. That's good. And we've got the raffle tickets. The gals will go around with raffle tickets. And we'd appreciate it if you would buy them. And here, whenever you're ready, we'll kind of get on with some heads and tails. And the heads and tails game will be another thing we'll do. So we want to encourage you to help support this so we can get the quality of programs that they're accustomed to having, and we want them to be very educational. And you can pick your party politics past them, but we certainly want you to pick and be involved. And it'll come to you when we get into this presentation, the importance that we're going to have to get involved. This is going to be a project for the infantry, I'm afraid, that we're getting ourselves into with where we're headed in this country. So that's going to be the next order of business here in a few minutes when we move the program from fundraising to educational here. And so, gals, do we want to Do we want to do some of the fundraising stuff now? Are we ready, or?
Yep, should we give it a try?
Okay. Okay. Well, let's, I guess I've got to get, which one do you want to do first? The gun raffle?
The guns at the end.
We want to do the gun at the end of the program out in the dining room.
Okay.
So we can do the heads or tails.
The heads or tails with the rings. So if you bought a ring, now I know that I've got an American quarter in here. If you bought a ring, and we're gonna play heads and tails to see who's gonna get this fine piece of jewelry, is that correct?
If you.
So now, anybody else want a ring? Anybody else got a $20 bill in their pocket? Oh, here we go, we got another one over here, they're gonna buy a ring. Oh, this is easy. Here, we got another one right here that buy a ring. Oh, I hope that China sent a bunch of them here. What's that? With the heads and tails? Yeah, well, no, I can handle that part. Okay, if everybody's kind of got, wait, we got one right. Did you get one here, sir?
No.
Okay, we need another ring.
I want to see a Chinese.
You want-
Oh, I ain't got one. I ain't got no more questions.
Okay. Okay. You people that have a Chinese ring in your possession, if you'll stand up and either put your hand here or your hand here, I'm gonna flip a coin and half of you are gonna sit down. And went, whoa, look at this, look at this. All right, please stand up if you've got yourself a Chinese ring. Okay, hand either on your head or on your tailbone. Okay, now I'm gonna flip this coin, and it is heads. So you people with heads, stay standing. You people with tails. Okay, now I'm gonna do it one more time. So now, heads or tails, you'll have to identify immediately. It's heads again. Okay, you people with heads, if you would come on down here, please. All right, we're getting up. All right. Okay. Boy, it's ironic, they're all women. Yeah, but only one Chinese woman, okay. Did you bring your own ring?
It's better than the ring that Gordon gave me.
Okay, we're gonna keep proceeding. We're gonna keep proceeding till we get down to 2. Okay?
So
Wait, what are we supposed to do? You didn't. Yeah, what are we supposed to do? You didn't say that first.
The game hasn't changed.
You didn't give us direction. We
Okay.
are all women, guys.
Does anybody not understand the program yet? No.
Raise your hand.
Okay, it is heads. No, wait, no.
Well, you did that on purpose.
Big one.
It's a tail.
Oh.
It is a tail. I'm
Help me and Granny.
sorry.
Stay here and help me and Granny.
Okay, are we down to how many?
Well,
We're down?
lost, but she's giving us moral support.
How many do we have live players? We got 3 live players? 4? You're a live player?
I am.
Now it's starting to look rigged.
Wait!
Here we go.
No,
You didn't say.
I didn't say nothing. You got to pick.
But you
Well,
didn't tell us to pick before you
It's
did.
not too late. You got, I think that'd be a tail. Yeah, okay. Okay, 3 heads and a tail. And it is a tail. We got it. Thanks much, folks. Thanks much for playing there. Okay, good job, good job. Okay. Ready, go. Okay, that being said, it's, we will be waiting on the auction items there and the gun raffle. So, I think that, I guess I've got a list.
Drop some on the floor.
There we go, that's exactly what I was saying. I'd really like to recognize some former and present office holders and legislatures in the area. And I know we got Steve Heibaugh and his wife Beth are here somewhere. Or Steve's up here, okay. And Senator Bob Phelan and his wife Connie, are they? There we go, yep. And Dennis Dorsky and Rita. Teskey.
Right here.
Okay, there you go. There's, sorry. Representative Jerry Schillinger. There's Jerry. And we former representative and Representative and Senator Les Hirsch. I saw that Les somewhere. He was giving me a bad time. So. Thank you, Mike. Thanks for your years of service, Les. Thank you. You bet. You bet. And current Representative Tony and Connie Tenzak, now Senator. Thanks. And then Jeff Patterson, now running for the PSC. There you go. Thanks, Jeff, for showing up. Appreciate it.
Representative Teal from Sydney is there too.
Representative Teal from Sydney. Thank you. Thank you for coming down from Sydney. So these people are who we've got to kind of fund some of our energies and input to, and we appreciate the time you folks take away from your occupations to do what you're doing for us, or you past people what you committed. And it's kind of ironic that we people, the reason I guess I got to back up. The reason I got picked to be your MC is because I haven't held office or I'm not presently an office holder. Well, the reason for that is I'm unelectable. So that qualified for this job in this case. And we people that are unelectable are real good at giving advice to the elected officials what needs to be done and how to do it also. But I noticed one thing, when term limits get them, or the election gets them, or they just retire from office and they come back home and they come back to their businesses, they're very humbled and they're not given a lot of advice on how to run the government. After they've been through the drill in Helena, in DC, or wherever that legislative body is that they're representing, it's a lot of hard work up there. It's a huge time commitment, and you people that have ran for office, you got to listen to us that haven't quite a bit, but we appreciate what you've done, whether you're on the same side of the issue as myself or on another side of the issue. But that time commitment is something else, and it's appreciated by us that haven't ran for office, and thanks for what you do. But that being said, I think that we are about ready to introduce the keynote speaker, and as I was headed out of Billings today, I had to come over from Billings, and I know more about on the interstate there in Billings, and I turn on Fox News channel on the radio, and lo and behold, Kevin Cork with Fox News is interviewing this guy from a motel room in Miles City, Montana. So I thought, boy, this is gonna be good. I'll at least have something to introduce this guy with when I get there, you know. And your guest speaker here has been an advocate for us. He's a Cornell University graduate. He's an accomplished author. He's an accomplished writer in several newspapers. He's been on every major network in the nation on TV. He spent 20 years in China and Hong Kong as an attorney. He is well versed in what he's going to talk to you about. So all I can ask you to do is turn off your Chinese cell phone, turn up your Chinese ear hearing aid, and then we're going to give you an hour of education. Mr. Gordon Chang. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Mike. Thank you, Mary. And hello, Patriots! You guys are warriors, and you are freedom's warriors, and Lydia and I are so proud to be here today to stand shoulder to shoulder with you. This is a moment for us to remember the valor and the sacrifice of those who stormed the beaches in Normandy 81 years ago yesterday. That was a war then. This is a war now. It's a moment of great peril. Our foreign enemies are closing in on us, and those foreign enemies are already inside the gates. They are ready to attack. We do not have a moment to lose because we have got to be strong, and today we're going to start with total war. In May 2019, People's Daily, the most authoritative publication in China, carried a landmark editorial that declared a quote-unquote people's war on us. In 2023, PLA Daily, which is the main propaganda organ of the Chinese military, defined that term as total war. And although the Chinese regime denies it, they have a doctrine of unrestricted warfare. Now, the Communist Party believes that it is in an existential struggle with us. And it believes that not because of anything that we say or do, but because of who we are. An insecure regime in Beijing is worried about the inspirational impact of America's values and form of governance on the Chinese people, so we will never have peace as long as the Communist Party rules China. Is the Chinese regime that hostile? A quarter century ago, then China's defense minister, General Chen Haotung, reportedly gave a secret speech. And in that speech, he advocated not just the killing of Americans, but the extermination of the American people. The general's plan was to use disease to clear out the hills, the plains, and valleys of North America so that the Chinese could then settle in the vast spaces that were left uninhabited. Quote, "It is indeed brutal to kill 100 or 200 million Americans," he said. Quote, "but this is the only path that will secure a Chinese century, a century in which the Communist Party rules the world." Now, we don't have verification that he actually gave that speech. So the question is, did he? Well, it just seemed inconceivable to us, fantastical, that the regime would use germs, microbes, viruses to commit such a genocide. The question is, did he really mean it? Well, events since then suggest that, in fact, he did give that speech. In the Wuhan Institute of Virology, a Chinese biological weapons lab, we know that COVID started. That disease killed millions in China, but it also killed millions outside of China, including, according to an official count from Johns Hopkins, 1.2 million Americans. Question is, how did that happen? Well, the Chinese regime knew no later than the second week of December of 2019 that SARS-CoV-2, the pathogen that causes COVID-19, was indeed highly transmissible human to human. But the regime, for weeks, maintained that this disease was not contagious. Both directly and through the World Health Organization, they said, don't worry about this. And they lulled public health officials around the world, including those in the Trump administration, not to take precautions. At the same time, the regime locked down China. Now, lockdowns are controversial, but by locking down China, the regime was telling the world they thought that was an effective way of stopping disease. So while the Chinese regime was strictly locking down their own country, they were pressuring others, especially the United States, to take arrivals from China without restrictions or quarantines. And that's how this disease, which should have been confined to the central part of China, became a global pandemic. Yes, what we saw, and the reason why this is so relevant, is because it sheds a light on the maliciousness of the Chinese regime. General Chen Haotan's speech reads like a warning, and it tells us that the Communist Party of China then, and events recently tell us now, that the Communist Party of China is capable of unfathomable evil. Why is COVID-19 relevant today? Because we know that in the Wuhan Institute of Virology and at other biological weapons labs, the Chinese are working on what they call, quote, specific ethnic genetic attacks. In other words, attacks that will leave the Chinese people immune, but will sicken and kill everybody else. This is China's weapon against the world. And this is the weapon that General Chen Haotan wished he had when he gave this speech a quarter century ago. But disease is not the only attack from China. We are seeing fentanyl. Now, fentanyl is a project of the Communist Party. The fentanyl gangs in China, they are large, they are well organized, they are international in scope, and they could not operate in China's near total surveillance state without both the knowledge and the approval of the Communist Party. But we know more than that. We know that some of the fentanyl producers are even state-owned. We know that the Chinese central government has given subsidies for the production of fentanyl. Chinese diplomats give cover to the fentanyl gangs. Every container that leaves China is inspected by Chinese officials. The fentanyl gangs launder their proceeds through the Chinese state banking system. And you guys have heard of TikTok? Chinese-owned TikTok promotes illicit drug use in the United States. 2 years ago, 75,000 Americans were killed, we say, by overdoses of fentanyl. Last year, thanks to President Trump closing down the southern border, we have seen a drop in fentanyl deaths. But the point is, these are not just overdoses. These are not just deaths. This is murder. This is mass murder. The mass murder of Americans by the Chinese regime. But fentanyl is not the only attack that is coming across our southern border. Biden opened up the southern border. We saw surges of migrants, including an unprecedented increase in the number of Chinese migrants into the United States. These were primarily desperate people who wanted to live in a free society. But towards the end of the Biden administration, we saw a change in the composition of the Chinese migrants coming across our southern border. They ended up being 2/3. At some border crossing points, 85% of these migrants were single Chinese males of military age, traveling without family members, some of them pretending not to speak English. Border Patrol knows that some of them had links to the Chinese military. And recently, at the last few months of the Biden administration, we were seeing packs of these Chinese migrant males coming in groups of 4 to 15, all dressed up and supplied with identical kit. This is not just a southern border problem. In February of last year, Border Patrol apprehended 3 Chinese migrants trying to sneak into Maine under cover of darkness. What made this ominous was that there was a 4th Chinese migrant on our side of the border who was there, obviously by prearrangement, to help them come into our country. Now, if you're a desperate Chinese person and you want to live in a free society, the first thing you do is you give yourself up to Border Patrol. You wanted to put yourself into the asylum queue. You wanted to get generous benefits from New York and other localities. If you're coming into this country and you're trying to avoid detection, you're coming here for no good. And we got a northern border problem. You're a border state. You are literally a border state. And we've got what's called the world's longest undefended border. That's the one with Canada, of course. It's a problem because dangerous elements are now choosing to come into our country, not from Mexico, but from Canada. In federal fiscal year 2024, that's the year that ended September 30th last year, U.S. Border Patrol apprehended 155 people on the terrorist watch list coming from Mexico. The number coming from Canada, which obviously the totals numbers from Canada were far less than the numbers from Mexico, but the numbers of people who were on the terrorist watch list apprehended by U.S. Border Patrol coming from Canada was 358. Dangerous elements are now choosing with Canada. All of this is occurring while we are seeing a dangerous increase in the number of attempted incursions into our military bases by Chinese migrants. These are fully armed incursions, attempted entries without authorization, and illicit surveillance. This is also occurring while we're seeing more and more of these drone incursions onto our military facilities. And we know that some of them, probably the majority of them, are run by Chinese operatives. They are studying our patterns, they're looking for our vulnerabilities, they are waiting to attack us. And it's not just looking at our military bases, they're looking at civilian infrastructure. Our electric grids, our water systems, telephone networks, ports. In the ports, there are the cranes. China is going to take those down when China's operatives get the go signal from Xi Jinping. And when that happens, almost nothing modern in our country is going to work. I think that what we are seeing are rehearsals for attacks. In August 2020, Radio Free Asia reported that an intelligence unit from the People's Liberation Army based themselves in the now closed Houston consulate, and there they were using big data to identify Americans likely to participate in Black Lives Matter and Antifa protests. And then the Chinese military sent them tailor-made videos. We know from related reporting that those tailor-made videos were TikToks. We know that the Chinese agents are here. The FBI closed down a secret Chinese police station in Chinatown, New York. But we also know from the Daily Caller and and other reporting that there are 7 to 9 more Chinese police stations in our country. That's China's pressuring on us in our homeland. Beijing is also going after others around the world. Xi Jinping is waging proxy wars on 3 continents at this moment. He's helping Russia attack Ukraine. In North Africa, he is fueling insurgencies that look like wars. In Asia, that's of course Iran's assault on Israel. Last month, India and Pakistan fought a 4-day war. China was on Pakistan's side. We are seeing China set fire to the world. And China is preparing to fight a war itself, and the signs are unmistakable. Xi Jinping can't stop talking about going to war. But he's doing more than just that. He is engaged in the biggest military buildup since the Second World War. He is trying to sanction-proof his regime. He's stockpiling grain and other commodities. He's firing military officers who are opposed to going to war. He is surveying the U.S. for nuclear weapon strikes. In Mike is from Billings. It was somebody in Billings who saw that rather large object over our country. That balloon surveilled Maelstrom Air Force Base in this state, F.E. Warren in Wyoming, Minot in North Dakota, Omaha, Nebraska, Offutt Air Force Base, the home of U.S. Strategic Command, which controls all U.S. nuclear weapons. And if that weren't enough, It flew close by Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri, where we have all of our B-2 strategic bombers. And in addition to all of this stuff, China is now mobilizing civilians to go to war. He's calling up reservists. He's taking over civilian factories so they will turn out items for the military. This is total mobilization. Now, I can't tell you whether Xi Jinping has made the decision to go to war. But I can tell you one thing 100%. 100%. China has made the decision to risk war. And it's made the decision to risk war with American treaty allies, such as South Korea, Japan, Philippines, and Australia. That means Xi Jinping has already made the decision that he is willing, and let me be less polite about this, that he is willing at this moment. He's made the decision that he can kill Americans. So what do we do? First of all, we must sever trade and investment with China. We cannot fuel a hostile regime. We must cut off the blood supply to those who mean us harm. Second thing, we have to eject China's agents from our country. And this means we close China's remaining 4 consulates and we strip their embassy staff, that overly large embassy, we strip it down next to nothing. And we got to get rid of Chinese businesses in our country, especially their state banks. And with their state banks, we need to designate them under Section 311 of the Patriot Act as being of primary money laundering concerns. These Chinese state banks, they handle the money for the deadly fentanyl trade. They should not be operating in our country. We did not allow Pablo Escobar to launder money through New York. We're allowing the Chinese to do it. I hope that God tells me why. Third thing, we must demand reciprocity. Our media can't be in China, so why is China's media in our country? China won't allow our apps, so why do we allow TikTok? And we can't have a Reagan Institute in China, so why do we have Confucius Institutes in our college and university campuses? But more important, why do we have Confucius classrooms, about 500 of them, in our secondary schools? We've got to get rid of them. Fourth, we need to stop China from systematically using its nationals to commit espionage against us. And this means we got to get rid of China's consular officials and Ministry of State security agents who monitor, coerce, and surveil Chinese students and get them to do things like stealing our intellectual property, in other words, our future, and also engaging in other activities that undermine our country. This is our country, folks. We don't have to put up with this. Fifth, let us end all technical cooperation with China. Too often in the past, we've given the world's best tech for next to nothing, sometimes for free. And this also means we can't allow the Chinese to buy our tech companies. President Obama allowed China in 2012 to buy Complete Genomics, which is, at that time, held the world's largest collection of DNA profiles of Americans. China's been using this for those specific ethnic genetic attacks. 6, let's get the Chinese off our farm and ranch land. We know the Chinese have been using this land for espionage, of course, also for illegal marijuana grows, also in Oklahoma to base human trafficking operations. And by the way, just a few days ago, we learned of the Chinese national who was arrested for trying to bring in a fungus into our country, a fungus that was going to blight our agriculture. This was not an isolated event. In 2020, Americans in all 50 states received seeds unsolicited from sources in China. I think that that was an attempt to plant invasive species in our country to attack our farms. And this was not isolated either, because this year, Temu, the online Chinese retailer, was caught sending seeds, again seeds, into our country unsolicited. This was a biological weapons attack. This was an attack with a weapon of mass destruction. This was an attack on the United States of America. We cannot facilitate those acts again. Get the Chinese out of this state and get them off our farm and ranch land everywhere. Last, let's jail every corrupt politician that's taken Chinese money. Especially if their last name is Biden. Before that, there are three things that you and I can do on our own. First of all, we can sell our Chinese stocks. Now, everyone in this room is thinking, I don't own Chinese stocks. But if you own a mutual fund, an international mutual fund, you probably do. So tell your broker, yeah, you want an international fund if you do, but it should be, and the phrase is, ex-China, ex-Hong Kong. Second thing, look before you shop. If you have the opportunity, don't buy something from China. Lydia and I, we bought a Chevrolet because we wanted to buy American. Also, third thing, demand that websites include cool information. That's cool as in COOL, country of origin labeling. We want to know where this crap comes from, and let's make this the law of the land. Now look, none of this is going to be easy, but how are we going to face our children when they realize that we had the means to protect them and chose not to do so? History has called upon us to defend the legacy of 1776. So it's now time for us to tell the world, we are Americans, we stand our ground, we do not yield, we are freedom's last line of defense. Thank you very much.
I assured you folks that this was very, very educational, and it certainly was. And we've chiseled out a time slot here where we would certainly field a few questions, whether it be strategy going forward, history. This man is a resource beyond belief. So let's not let him out of eastern Montana without asking him a few questions. And we'll get you there in just a second, but we're going to do that for about 10-15 minutes, and then he'll have a couple more closing comments, and we will sell these auction items, and we will go down in the lobby and have some camaraderie and some refreshments and stuff. So questions, please, and I'll repeat the question so everybody can hear it, and but let's start right here.
What do you think about the Chinese having Chinese police departments in our cities to police the Chinese who are in America?
Okay, the question was, what does Gordon think about having Chinese police departments in our cities for the purpose of policing Chinese that are in our country? Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you for an easy question. We got to get rid of them. There's no question about it. Look, there's a couple things here. We have known for a very long time that China has maintained these facilities in our country. So, why do we permit this? It's on us. We have got to make sure that Republicans and Democrats, liberals and conservatives, close these locations down. And it's not like this is a mystery. Both the New York Post and the Daily Caller have identified these locations. You know, law enforcement now has a guide, so obviously we got to do it. Now, these Chinese, they say, oh, we're just helping people get driver's licenses. Yeah. Even if that were the case, this is a violation of our sovereignty. That's a violation of the Vienna Convention that covers diplomatic outposts. But it's worse than that, because we know that they engage in all sorts of activities like coercing Chinese people, Chinese nationals, and U.S. citizens who are, like me, who are of ethnic Chinese descent, to go and do things that Beijing wants. Because what they do is they coerce They say, look, if you don't do what we want, we're going after your relative in Beijing. So clearly, we have got to stop this. This is our country.
Go and talk
This is
about,
our country.
go and talk about, is in Minnesota. Talk about Tim.
You know, one of these Chinese police stations, it's actually very close to here. It's in Minnesota. Tim Waltz is Minnesota. They are all throughout our country. 7 to 9 of them.
Question, let's take, sir in the plaid shirt, please.
I think it was 3 days ago, I heard you on Fox, Gordon, and you mentioned that you had a verification that Xi, the Chinese chairman of the board, has lost his support from the Chinese military. Is that correct?
Okay, the question is,
And what does that mean?
okay, the question is, has Xi lost some of his military support from the Chinese people, and what does that mean to us? Is that correct?
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I think that he has. The Chinese military is an opaque institution on the best of days, and even more so now. But we know that there has been turmoil at the top of the Chinese military. So, for instance, a guy named General Hu Weidong, who has been the number 2 uniformed officer in the Chinese military, has not been seen in public since March 11th. Now, a lot of people say, well, Xi Jinping got rid of his own guy, because General Hu Weidong was Xi Jinping's number 1 guy in the Chinese military. He was the hatchet man for Xi. And so people say, well, Xi got rid of his own guy. I don't think that's the case. And the reason is that we know that since July 9th of last year, PLA Daily, which I mentioned is the main propaganda organ of the Chinese military, has been running articles praising quote-unquote collective leadership. Now that is a direct criticism of Xi Jinping because of Xi Jinping's dictatorial style and demand for complete obedience. So Xi Jinping can't be in control of the Chinese military if the main propaganda organ is carrying articles criticizing him. And we know that the people who are writing these articles are affiliated with the number 1 uniformed officer, who's an opponent of Xi Jinping, General Zhang Yuxia. So I think it means that Xi has lost a lot of influence and maybe even total control over the Chinese military. You ask a great question, like, what does it mean for us? And that we don't know. But I gotta be worried, because if Xi Jinping is losing control of the military, it means he is going to do something to lash out. The PLA, People's Liberation Army, is the most important faction in the Chinese political system. It's not a state army, it's a party army. It reports to the Communist Party of China. I think that Xi Jinping is also in trouble with civilians, although we don't have the same level of corroboration. But the point is, this guy now has Xi Jinping has a very low threshold of risk, because he could see that he might be out. And that means he can take us by surprise by doing something. He still may have some elements of the Chinese military that is loyal, I don't know, but maybe he will use them. Remember, when strong men are weak, they don't take that as the final answer. They are going to do something. And that means we all, everyone outside of China, is at risk. That's why I worry. I worry about a strong China, of course. I worry about a weak China, too.
Okay, I'm gonna take a question right up there in the black, please. Maybe the mic will reach across there. Well, yeah, go ahead, no, we'll see if everybody hears it.
I just would like to know what your thoughts on ES&S, Dominion, and Smartmatic, and do you think we will go back to hand counting?
Okay, I don't know whether China's been influencing and manipulating its control over some of these companies that provide electronic voting. But I do know that they did this in South Korea, where they have been using algorithms to change election results in South Korea. So I sort of assume if they're doing it there, maybe they're doing it here, but I don't know. But let me tell you, the people in Taiwan, they run really clean elections. It's very simple. They don't use all these electronic voting machines, which really scare the bejesus out of me. They do paper ballots. Paper ballots, and I'll tell you how they do this. They got voting on one day. You got to show up in person. Every ballot is put into a clear plastic box. And they're counted at the end of the day by an election official who holds up every ballot and shows it to everybody in the room. So they'll pick up the ballot and they'll go like this. Everybody in the room, they have the identical count. Why can't we do the same thing? President Trump actually talked about paper ballots. Absolutely, we should be doing this. Elections are critical. They are the core of our democracy. Why can't we do something simple, which is better than all of this electronic crap? So that's the way we should go.
Yes, right there in the room, please.
Could you talk about the mandate of heaven? And can the Chinese Communist Party survive the loss of it, or do you think that they can survive the loss of it?
Okay, the question was, will Gordon address the mandate of heaven, and can the Communist Party survive with or without it? Is that correct?
Yeah. I didn't want to scare you, so I didn't talk about the mandate of heaven. Xi Jinping has been pushing the notion that Chinese rulers not only have the mandate of heaven to rule what they call Tianxiang, or all under heaven, but that heaven actually compels them to rule all under heaven. Now, since 2017, Chinese officials ruling the entire earth. I mean, this is not control, this is not hegemony, this is direct rule. In other words, there is no United States of America in Xi Jinping's view. We are all subjects to the grand celestial Chinese court. So, what's more ambitious than believing that you must rule the entire world? Well, you must rule the entire solar system. Because since 2017, Chinese officials have been talking about the moon and Mars as sovereign Chinese territory. Now, yeah, this is ludicrous. But this is the way they think, and we have to understand what our enemies think. Even if we think that they are completely off the range. We did not listen to Osama bin Laden. We did not listen to Osama bin Laden in 1990, even after 1993, where he killed 6 Americans by bombing the North Tower of the World Trade Center. We only listened to him when on one day in September 2001, he killed 2,977 Americans. Well, we damn well need to listen to what the Chinese are saying. Because the Chinese mean it, and they've got much more power than Al-Qaeda ever had. I'll calm down.
Question here.
I got on a Rumble channel and researched you a little bit before we came in here. And on one of the podcasts, you talked about the cranes at the docks and how the Chinese could control them remotely. Can you expound on that? And is there a way to circumvent that?
Okay, the question was, on the docks, on the shipping docks of China, and probably in America also, the Chinese can run these cranes that pick up these containers that are scattered all over eastern Montana remotely. Can we address that?
Yeah. First of all, I want to say I'm not a Packers fan, so. Thank you. Thank you. And I will pray for you too, even though. Anyway, what was the question? There is a Chinese company in Shanghai that makes nearly 80% of the cranes in our ports. Those are those big things that carry the containers, put them on ships, take them off ships, all the rest of it. The Wall Street Journal did an investigative report, which was about a couple of years ago. The company's name is ZPMC. Which showed that some of these Chinese cranes had cellular modems in them, which were not part of the specifications, and which were not at all related to the activity that these cranes were built for. So in other words, the Chinese just inserted these communication devices, which meant the Chinese could communicate with these cranes. First of all, they were stealing a lot of data, because it's important to know what goes through American ports, but also it gave them the opportunity to remotely control these cranes, which means that at a time of war, they could disable the cranes, or they could use them to drop containers on ships or whatever. This is not isolated, of course, because, you know, these wind farms that we've got in our country.
Gordon, they're not farms.
They're not farms, right. Right, they're not, wind farms,
wind
solar
pro-
farms are
wind
not
projects.
farms.
Solar
Right,
projects.
right. This is what happens when somebody who lives in an urban area comes to a better part of America. But those power inverters, which connect wind turbines and solar fields to the grid, China also can control them, and they can use them to turn off and to damage the grids. Now, this is not theoretical, because Reuters reported not long ago that China actually remotely, from China, turned off a US solar farm field. And so we have to understand that they will disable our infrastructure. So this is something that they have done. And the question is, what else can they do? But a lot of the devices in our country can be controlled by China. So for instance, if you own a drone, about 70% of the world's drones are made by a company in Shenzhen. That's the city across from Hong Kong. And the company's DJI. And if you buy a drone from DJI and you don't disable the communication, they will send data back to China. Which means every time you look at your own neighborhood, China is looking at your neighborhood. So this is something that we have got to understand, and we've got to start taking these devices out of our country or disabling their communication links. It's as simple as that.
Go and talk about Huawei.
Yeah, Huawei Technologies is a Chinese company which now basically provides, I forget, like 70 or 80% of the world's networking servers. The Huawei has been used by China to surveil communication networks around the world. And right now, fortunately, during the first Trump administration, there was an effort to get Huawei out of our telecom backbone. It's been mostly completed, except in rural areas. And this is going to take some time, but we now have an FCC, Federal Communications Commissioner, chairman of it, Brendan Carr, who is really hot on this issue. So we will strip Huawei out of our networks. But remember, Huawei is in the networks of countries that we deal with. So once they're there, they're also in ours, or at least they're close to ours. So we've got to make sure that, and this is going to be a long struggle because Huawei is a low-cost producer by far, and the reason is because it's not really a company as we know it. It's really the Chinese central government. And China has been using Huawei to put its servers around the world so that China can control the world's telecoms. Simple as that.
I was, the question, I think the pending economic collapse of China is going to spur them to invade Taiwan.
Okay, the question was, is the pending economic collapse of China them to invade Taiwan? Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Technically, the answer is no, but the point of your question, you are absolutely right. It's going to spur them to be much more aggressive and start a war someplace else. So it's a question of whether the war starts in Taiwan or some other place around China. And for various technical military reasons, I think they're going to go after another country. But the point is, the Chinese economy is not growing at the 5.4% pace that they report for the first quarter of this year. We don't know where it is, but it's probably not growing at all. And the reason is we can see this from underlying price data. China is in a deflationary spiral. Deflation is basically an economy killer. It is going to, as you suggest, it's going to make China more aggressive. I'm sure of that, so you're right about that. But I think for various reasons they're going to go after probably the Philippines or some other country because it's an easier military target. So yeah, we got to be concerned because China's economy is worse than they're telling us. It's worse, I think, than most people in our country think it is. And Xi Jinping is being blamed for it. Part of the reasons why he's having such trouble with the Chinese military, sir, is because he's being blamed for some really ill-advised economic policies that are driving China's economy deeper into the ground. So this guy is going to do something. He can easily take us by surprise. So thank you for that question.
So I'm gonna add something to Gordon's answers, because I'm the boss. So, because of that, Xi Jinping is going to lash out, not because he wants to rally the Chinese people in a war. The Chinese people do not want war. But he's going to lash out in order to prevent his political opponents from challenging him. This is what Mao did in 1960s, so the Cultural Revolution, is to make sure that his political opponents don't get rid of him. So if you are a wartime president, your political opponents is difficult to get rid of you. So I think that's why he is dangerous at this moment.
Thank you. Okay, we have a question over here.
That was the same question I had.
Okay, real good. Dennis?
Yes.
I can't wait to hear your question.
Okay. How much help are the Chinese getting from our government?
The question was, how much help are the Chinese getting from some special interests in our government?
What a great question. And we've had 3 instances where American presidents have rescued the Chinese Communist Party at critical moments. You had Nixon in 1972 when he goes to Beijing. This is the end of China's Cultural Revolution, where the Chinese people are criticizing Mao. Nixon goes to China, and he sort of says the U.S. is going to support Mao, in effect. Now, Nixon did that. Nixon had a good reason to. We were having a hard time in the Cold War. He wanted to recruit the Chinese. I can understand it. What I can't understand are the two successive times. 1989, George H.W. Bush, after the Tiananmen massacre, sends Brent Scowcroft on a secret mission to tell China, this is after the Tiananmen massacre, he tells China, look, we're going to support you. This was wrong. And then Bill Clinton in 1999, at a low point in China, he agrees to get China into the World Trade Organization, from where they just decimate our economy and our society. That was wrong too. Today, you still have Wall Street, which is supporting China. And you can see it because every time President Trump imposes a tariff on China, or he does something that is protecting our economy, Wall Street goes berserk. So, yeah, there's a real problem there. And it's because we Americans don't understand the maliciousness of the Chinese assault on our country. And what we need to do is we need to change it. We need to change it one person at a time. So I hope that you go out and talk to your neighbors about this, because we got to tell our representatives in Congress, our people in Helena and every place else, that this has got to end.
We're going to take a couple more questions here. Let's go up in the black, please.
My question is about the internal resistance of the Chinese people. First of all, there's always some guesses that there's a far-right evangelical movement inside China, but nobody knows for sure. But how much resistance is there among the Chinese people that would like to overthrow the government?
Great question. First of all, we don't know the number of underground Protestants in China, but it's measured in the tens of millions. And the Communist Party is dedicated to attacking the underground house churches, as they're called. And they're not very successful, because this is one of the best stories for Christianity around the world, is the spread of these unofficial, illegal underground churches in China. So these people don't want to be opponents of the regime, but the regime is making them opponents. We know that in China right now, and we can be pretty sure that there's not much of a democracy movement. This is one of the most coercive countries on the face of the earth. But we know the Chinese population is volatile. And we know this because, for instance, in October of 2022, just out of the blue, no planning, no organization, no leadership, workers in Zhengzhou in central China decided that they had enough of Xi Jinping's COVID rules. They walked off, and they triggered a series of protests around China for about 3.5, 4 months on various issues. Some of those protests were anti-Xi Jinping, anti-Communist Party. Some of them were just, I want my benefits that my local government hasn't been paying. They were over so many different issues. So we know that the Chinese people are volatile, and Chinese society is volatile. And these people, they're not going to wake up in the morning and say, I want to overthrow the Communist Party, but they will wake up in the morning and say, if I can have a better life, I want it, and I'm just not gonna put up with this crap anymore. So that movement is very strong. And that's the reason why the Chinese Communist Party runs a near total surveillance state, which is why it's extremely coercive, because they are, in Beijing, they are afraid, they're afraid of us, maybe, but they are afraid of the Chinese people. So yes, and that's why we have a Chinese society right now that is not only, in a question of volatile, it's also a lot of people have opted out of Chinese society because they've had enough. Which is the reason why you had a lot of Chinese migrants coming across our southern border, because they were willing to give up almost everything in their lives to live in a free country. That shows you the discontent in Chinese society today.
Sir, up there with the American solar panel. I got one too. Question. Oh.
Didn't know if you were talking to me or not.
Yeah.
Sir, your thoughts on the current discussion about Chinese students in the United States?
Yeah. There's about 277,000 Chinese nationals who are students in our educational institutions right now. That's down about 100,000 pre-COVID. But they've now become very controversial. As you know, Secretary Rubio, Secretary of State, said he's going to aggressively revoke Chinese visas. And that is a good thing. It's drastic, but we need drastic action. Because we know that maybe about 13% of Chinese students commit espionage. I don't think that many of them want to do that, but they are forced by their regime to do so. The 2017 National Intelligence Law of China requires every Chinese national to spy if they're given a demand by the relevant authorities. But more important, the Communist Party's top-down system requires every Chinese person to follow orders of the Communist Party. So we have Chinese students not only stealing our IP, but also engaging in all sorts of acts that some of them are illegal, but all of them undermine our society. We can't permit this. Now, this is not just China. The issue here is America, because we know that China's consular officials and Ministry of State Security agents have established in the country for decades, monitoring, coercing, and surveilling Chinese students. So Chinese students, of course, they're not going to be able to resist, some agent wanting them to do something. So we got to get those guys out of our country. If we get them out of our country, then maybe we can sort of have some sort of good relationship with Chinese students. But this is an emergency, so I fully support what the Secretary is doing. It is really important to do this. And I say this because, look, I'm here because a Chinese student a long time ago, my dad, left China 1945 in February, arrived in the port of San Pedro, which is Los Angeles, on a scholarship, and a generous America allowed him to stay. But nonetheless, right now, the situation is, I think, dire for us. And so we are going to have to take those drastic measures. And by the way, it's not racism. Every time we have a problem with, a Chinese student, people say, we're being racist. Well, no, we're not. Because the Chinese regime, the Communist Party, has weaponized its nationals to attack the United States. We cannot permit that.
Amen. And one more over here. We got one, okay.
So working in genetic testing, I'm very grateful to hear you talk about genetically intelligent biowarfare. I think the average American is still not really connecting how serious that is until COVID hit. So what would be the best recommendations for Americans to fight back against that? What are the simplest things other than not neglecting your personal health? But what do you think on the levels of what you see it from? How do we need to engage to block future attacks?
Oh, what a great question. There's so many different little things that will make a difference. So I've got a friend in Florida whose wife is a medical, she works in a hospital. And she had noticed that there was a Chinese scientist who was allowed to float around and collect all sorts of information. We just can't permit that anymore. And we've got to get them out of our country. The other thing is, And we've got to make sure that websites like Ancestry and all of that sever all relationships with China. They've been starting to do that, but you know, when you do that swab in your mouth or whatever they do, that information sometimes ends up in China, and which means that your DNA is in China. And you know, people say, well, who cares? You know, I'm a 17-year-old. You know, why would the Chinese care? Well, the reason why we care is because every president of the United States was once a 17-year-old. Every Supreme Court justice was as a 17-year-old. So we've got to end those technical links. And it's not going to be easy. But right now, if you want to find the largest collection of DNA profiles of Americans, you ain't going to find it in our country. It's in China. And China is going to weaponize it, which is the reason why they are working on those specific ethnic genetic attacks. Because the more information you have about others, the more it's easier it is for you to develop a weapon that can target a specific ethnic group. And by the way, this is not, this sounds sort of like Buck Rogers stuff, but you know, even today, the Chinese, and probably we can do it as well, we can develop a disease that will attack only one person. That's how advanced all of this is. Jason Crow, who is a Democratic representative from Colorado, has talked about this. So this is the type of things that the Chinese can do. And by the way, if I can just add one thing, we know China has killed 1.2 million Americans with cocaine. Okay, well, the Chinese know that we know. And the Chinese also know that we have imposed no cost on China for doing so. We have to impose costs on China for killing Americans with COVID for a lot of reasons, justice included. But one of the points is, Xi Jinping knows that he got away with killing 7 million people outside of China, 1.2 million Americans. And so what is the deterrent for him to go out and do the next disease against us? There is now no deterrent. So we have to impose those costs on China, however we do it, which is a bigger part of the problem that you talk about, but we obviously have to, because we cannot allow him to use that extermination disease, the one that General Chor Hao-Tun talked about. Fortunately, he didn't have it, but now they very well may.
Thank you, Gordon. I think now Gordon's going to get his train of thought together for a 2-minute closing. But while he's preparing that in his mind, I think we got to look at this flag and kind of decide what it means to us. Because after this 2-minute closing, it gets pretty incumbent upon us to take the action that it's going to take to save her from what we're faced with. But before then, I guess we're going to sell a couple items, and then we're going to go down in the lobby for some hors d'oeuvres and some refreshments. But Gordon, I'd like to turn you loose for 2 minutes of closing, please.
Well, my wife says that I got to leave you guys on an optimistic note. So here's my optimistic story. Because I know that after 31 years, 9 months, and 10 days, there's no point in arguing with her. Okay, so here's the optimistic story. In September and October of 2023, Lydia and I took a 3-week, 9-stop, 8,700-mile car trip through the South and the West. It was a speaking trip.
And I drove 8,700
Yep, she did. Okay. And on this trip, we saw patriotic yard signs. We saw American flags thrown from F-150s. And we saw one-room churches dotting the highways. There were truck stops with scruffy drivers who were in desperate need of a break. And at McDonald's, there were teenagers selling smiles as well as hamburgers. And the one thing that we saw out of all of this is that America is a great country. More important, Americans are good people. So my optimistic take on all of this is that all of us good people in this room, all of us, We are strong, we are resilient, and once again, we will do great things. So Patriots, let the world hear us. Let those bastards in Beijing hear us. Say it after me. USA! 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 These colors don't run.
Thank you, folks. Thanks a lot. Down in the lobby, this is Gordon's latest writing, Plan Red, a very good book. Be sure to pick up a copy as you're down there mingling. But in the meantime, I would like to sell these two works of art here, and I think what we could do is the wooden one is made by a young man in Miles City here, a 27-year-old. Got a tree business and all, all these notes. I can't find that note. But anyway, they're both local signs. The other one's Curtis Solberg. He made the metal sign, and I'd like to auction. We're going to auction them off. All proceeds tonight, by the way, go to the Patriot Roundtable. There's no candidates, no special interest groups are getting any of the funds. It's strictly for them to do their podcast, their telecast, and have their meeting and bring speakers in and do the educating and the informing that goes with that. So that being said, we've got two American flags there. You pick the one you want first, and then I'll sell the second one. So here we go. $300 bid now, $350, $300 bid now, $3.5 now, $400 bid now, $400, $400, $400, $3.5 bid now, $400. Will somebody please give me $400 for the cause? $3.5 bid now, $400 bid now, $400 bid now, $4.5, $4.5, $4.5 now, $500 bid now, $500, $500, $500, $4.5 bid now, $500 bid now, $5.5. $500 bid now, $5.5, $5.5, $500 bid now, $550. $500 bid now, $5.5. All in, all done, $550. $550. I'm gonna sell it. $550. Sold at $500.
Metal.
Take the metal one, okay? Well, thank you much for that fine donation. We'll sell that beautiful wood one now. $200 bid now, $2.5, $200 bid now, $250. $200 bid now, $2.5, $200 bid now, $2.5, now $300 bid now, $3.5, now $400. $400 bid now, $400 all in, $375. $3.5 bid now, $375 all in, all done, $375. $3.5 bid now, $375. Hurry along if you could support us, please. $375. $3.5 bid now, $375. $375. Sold at $300. $350. Lauren, thank you much.
Dry bean livestock.
Dry bean livestock. Thank you much. Okay, that being said, it kind of concludes our program with the exception of some drawings. Are we going to do them now, or are we going to do them down the lobby? Down in the lobby. There's hors d'oeuvres down there. Gordon will be down there to sign some books and stuff if you purchase a book. So take your time. Nobody's in any hurry to get you out of here. Get some camaraderie with your friends and relatives. And on the gun raffle, we're going to do it a little bit. You must be present to win. But we'll do that here before too long. So if you don't have a gun raffle, and the silent auction items, swing through there once if you would, please. Thank you much. Thank you. Okay. That's all for now, and we'll do some drawing here in a minute. Good.